Welcome back to another episode of Air Design Answers, where we help homeowners understand their heating, cooling, and indoor comfort systems without all the confusing technical jargon. I'm Chris.
And I'm Todd. Thanks for joining us again. Today's topic is one that causes a lot of confusion because almost everyone has an opinion about it. We hear it every summer. My air conditioner runs all day. My neighbor has a bigger unit than I do. I think I need a larger air conditioner. Or sometimes it's the complete opposite. My air conditioner turns on and off every few minutes. Isn't that a good thing because it cools the house so quickly? Believe it or not, both of those situations can actually point to a problem.
Exactly. Today's episode is all about one question. Is your air conditioner undersized or oversized? And here's the funny part. Most homeowners think bigger is automatically better. In almost every other purchase we make, that's kind of true. Bigger TV, bigger truck, bigger barbecue, bigger garage. But when it comes to air conditioning, bigger can actually make your home less comfortable.
That's probably the biggest myth in our industry. Someone says, my old air conditioner was 2 tons. Let's put in a 3-ton unit and it'll cool even better. Unfortunately, that's not how air conditioning works. Your air conditioner isn't just lowering the temperature, it's also removing moisture from the air. And those two jobs have to happen together.
Exactly. A lot of homeowners think the thermostat is the only thing that matters. If it says 22 degrees, the house must be comfortable. Not necessarily. You can have a house that's 22 degrees but feels damp and sticky, or another house that's 22 degrees and feels crisp, cool, and comfortable. The difference is humidity. And humidity is something most people don't even realize their air conditioner is supposed to control.
Let's explain that a little. Imagine you walk into your basement. It's only 20 degrees down there, but it feels damp, maybe even musty. Now imagine walking into a hotel room that's 20 degrees. Totally different feeling. That's because the humidity level is much lower. Temperature is only part of comfort.
That's why you'll sometimes hear people say, I've got my thermostat set to 20 degrees and I'm still uncomfortable. Sometimes the equipment is actually cooling the house too fast. That sounds backwards, but it's true. If the air conditioner satisfies the thermostat in 5 or 6 minutes, it shuts off before it's had enough time to remove very much moisture. So the temperature drops, but the humidity stays behind.
That's called short cycling, and we'll talk a lot more about it later because it's one of the biggest signs of an oversized air conditioner. Think of it like washing dishes. If you dip a plate into soapy water for 2 seconds and pull it back out, is it really clean? Not really. The plate needs some time. Air conditioners work the same way. They need run time.
And here's something that surprises people. When we install a properly sized air conditioner on one of the hottest days of the year, it might actually run almost continuously. Homeowners sometimes panic. They'll call us and say, my new air conditioner hasn't shut off all afternoon. Well, what's the temperature outside? 34 degrees? Humid? Full sun? Perfect. That's exactly what it's supposed to do.
People are shocked when we tell them that, because we've always been taught that if something runs all the time, something must be wrong. Not with air conditioning. A properly sized system is designed to keep up with the heat load. It's not designed to blast the house down 5 degrees in 15 minutes. It's designed to quietly maintain the temperature while constantly removing heat and humidity.
And here's something else. Let's say it's 35 degrees outside. Your air conditioner has been running for a couple of hours. Inside your house, it's holding a comfortable 22 degrees. That's success. It doesn't matter that it's running. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Now let's flip it around. Suppose you have a giant air conditioner, way bigger than what your home actually needs. It turns on, blows freezing cold air, drops the thermostat quickly, shuts off. 5 minutes later, the temperature starts climbing again, turns back on, then off again, over and over all day. Most homeowners think, wow, this thing is powerful. Actually, that's usually a sign something isn't right.
And here's where the story gets interesting. I remember a customer years ago who insisted we install a larger air conditioner than what we recommended. We performed our calculations, measured the home, looked at the insulation, windows, orientation to the sun, everything. Our recommendation was a 2-ton unit. He wanted a 3-ton because his neighbor had one. He kept saying, I don't want my air conditioner running all afternoon. Against our advice, another contractor eventually installed the larger system.
I know where this story's going.
About 3 weeks later, guess who called? The homeowner. He wasn't happy. The house cooled quickly, but every afternoon, his wife complained it felt damp, sticky, like the air was heavy. They started lowering the thermostat to 20 degrees, then 19, trying to make it feel comfortable. Their hydro bill went up, the humidity stayed high, and the system was short-cycling constantly.
That's such a common story. People think temperature equals comfort. It doesn't. Humidity can completely change how a house feels. If you've ever visited Florida in the summer, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. 30 degrees with low humidity feels very different than 30 degrees with 80% humidity. Your air conditioner's job isn't just to make cold air, it's to condition the air. That's literally where the name comes from.
Exactly. Now, some people listening might be wondering, so what if my air conditioner is actually undersized? That's a great question too, because undersized doesn't automatically mean bad. Sometimes homeowners think they need a larger unit simply because the air conditioner runs for long periods. But remember what we just talked about. On the hottest days of the year, that's normal. A properly designed system should be working steadily during extreme weather.
One of the best analogies I've heard is comparing it to your vehicle on the highway. Imagine driving your truck at 100 kilometers an hour. Would you rather the engine run smoothly at highway speed, or floor the gas pedal for 10 seconds, then slam on the brakes, then floor it again, over and over for the entire trip? Steady operation is almost always easier on equipment than constant starting and stopping.
Exactly. Every startup is where the hardest work happens. Compressors don't love starting. Motors don't love starting. Electrical components don't love starting. Long, consistent run times are often healthier than dozens and dozens of short cycles every day.
So we've already busted one huge myth. Running continuously on a very hot day isn't necessarily a problem. In fact, it may actually be evidence that your contractor sized your equipment properly.
We're going to explain how professionals actually determine what size air conditioner your house needs, why square footage alone doesn't work, and some of the unbelievable shortcuts we've seen over the years that have left homeowners with the wrong equipment from day one. We'll also talk about something called a manual J load calculation, and why it's probably the most important step in replacing an air conditioner.
Now let's get into the question homeowners ask us all the time. How do you actually know what size air conditioner my house needs? A lot of people assume it's based on square footage alone. It's not. Not even close.
If it were that simple, every contractor could just look at a chart. 2,000 square feet? Perfect. Here's your 3-ton air conditioner. Done. But homes don't work like that. I've been in 2 houses on the exact same street, built by the same builder, with almost identical floor plans, and they needed different equipment.
Exactly. Think about everything that affects how much heat gets into a home. How much insulation is in the attic? What kind of windows do you have? Do those windows face south and bake in the sun all afternoon? Is the basement finished? Do you have tall cathedral ceilings? How airtight is the home? Even the color of your roof can make a difference.
And then there are renovations. Maybe 10 years ago you replaced every window in the house. Maybe you added insulation. Maybe you finished the basement. Or maybe you built a huge addition on the back. Every one of those changes affects how much cooling your home actually needs. That's why replacing an air conditioner based solely on what was there before can be a mistake.
That's something we run into fairly often. A homeowner says, "My old unit was a 2.5 ton, so just replace it with another 2.5. Well, hold on a second. How old is that system? 25 years? 30 years? The house has probably changed since then. And there's another thing. The original system may have been the wrong size from the very beginning."
Exactly. Just because something has been there for 20 years doesn't mean it was right. I've seen homes where builders oversized equipment because it was easier than doing the proper calculations. I've also seen older homes where additions were built later, but nobody ever upgraded the equipment. So assuming the old size is correct can sometimes create another 20 years of comfort problems.
That brings us to something called a manual J load calculation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is pretty straightforward. You're calculating how much heat enters the house during the hottest conditions of the year. Then you select equipment that matches that heat load. It's engineering, not guessing.
Now, homeowners don't necessarily need to know every formula involved, but they should know this. If someone walks into your house, looks around for 3 minutes, doesn't measure anything, doesn't ask about insulation, doesn't ask about renovations, doesn't ask about windows, and immediately tells you exactly what size air conditioner you need, I'd be asking a few questions.
Absolutely. Now, are there experienced contractors who can make a very educated estimate? Sure. After thousands of homes, you develop instincts. But even then, we like to verify those instincts with actual information whenever possible, because every home is different.
Here's a story. A few summers ago, we visited a customer who said, "Our upstairs has always been hot. We've decided we need a bigger air conditioner." Makes sense on the surface, but once we started looking around, we noticed something else. The downstairs was freezing. The basement was like a refrigerator. The upstairs was warm. That wasn't an air conditioner size problem. That was an airflow problem.
Exactly, and that's a huge distinction. The air conditioner can only cool the air that actually reaches the rooms. If the ductwork isn't balanced, if dampers are closed, if returns aren't adequate, if airflow is restricted, installing a larger air conditioner doesn't magically solve those problems. Sometimes it actually makes them worse.
We adjusted the airflow, made a few duct modifications, balanced the system properly, and suddenly the upstairs became comfortable. Same air conditioner, same thermostat, no larger equipment. The homeowner couldn't believe the difference.
That's why it's so important to diagnose the problem before replacing expensive equipment. If you tell your doctor your knee hurts, you wouldn't expect them to immediately recommend surgery without examining it. HVAC should be the same way. Find the cause first, then recommend the solution.
Another thing homeowners often overlook is the air filter. We've been to homes where someone thought the air conditioner was undersized because it just wasn't cooling properly. The real culprit? A filter that looked like it hadn't been changed in 2 years. The system literally couldn't breathe.
And while we're talking about airflow, let's touch on something else: furniture. Believe it or not, we've seen supply vents completely covered by couches, returns hidden behind cabinets, bedrooms with every register closed because someone thought it would push more air somewhere else. All those little things affect how your house cools.
Here's another interesting story. Years ago, we had a customer who called because one bedroom was always 5 degrees warmer than the rest of the house. They were convinced the air conditioner was too small. When we got there, we found something almost comical. The supply register had been accidentally closed. Not halfway, completely closed. Apparently, someone had been cleaning years earlier and turned the damper without realizing it. They lived with that problem for 2 summers. One quick adjustment, problem solved.
I remember another one. A family had beautiful custom drapes, floor to ceiling. They looked fantastic. The problem was they completely covered the supply registers underneath the windows. All the cold air was trapped behind heavy fabric instead of entering the room. They thought they needed a larger system. They just needed the airflow to reach the room.
That's why we always encourage homeowners to think of the HVAC system as exactly that, a system. It's not just the outdoor unit. It's not just the furnace. It's not just the thermostat. It's the ductwork, the airflow, the filtration, the insulation, the windows, the home itself. Everything works together.
Let's talk about another misconception. People sometimes say, "My neighbor has the same size house as I do, and he has a bigger air conditioner." Well, that doesn't necessarily mean yours is wrong. Maybe his house has western exposure and gets baked by the afternoon sun. Maybe yours has mature shade trees. Maybe his attic has very little insulation. Maybe yours was upgraded. Maybe his equipment is oversized. Without knowing all those variables, comparing equipment sizes between neighbors doesn't really tell you anything.
One of my favorite sayings is this: comfort is measured inside the house, not by the sticker on the outdoor unit. Homeowners get caught up in tonnage, 2 ton, 2.5, 3 ton, 4 ton. But what really matters is your family comfortable? Is humidity controlled? Does the equipment run efficiently? Are your energy bills reasonable? Those are much better indicators than simply knowing how many tons your air conditioner is.
And now we've reached the point where people listening are probably wondering, okay, But how do I actually know if my own air conditioner is oversized or undersized? That's exactly where we're going next. We'll walk through the warning signs homeowners should watch for, what they can safely observe themselves, and when it's time to call in a professional. We'll also talk about variable speed equipment, two-stage air conditioners, and why modern systems have changed the sizing conversation quite a bit over the last decade.
So far, we've talked about why bigger isn't always better, why an air conditioner that runs for long periods on a hot day isn't necessarily a problem, and how professionals determine the correct size for a home. Now, let's answer the question everyone listening is probably asking. How do I know if my own air conditioner is actually the wrong size? The truth is, there isn't one single sign. It's usually a combination of things.
Let's start with an oversized air conditioner because that's probably the one we see causing the most comfort complaints. One of the biggest clues is short cycling. The system turns on, blasts cold air for 5 or 6 minutes, reaches the thermostat setting, shuts off, and then repeats that cycle over and over. On paper, it looks like it's doing a great job because the thermostat says the right temperature. But people in the house say things like, "It just never feels comfortable. It feels clammy. The sheets feel damp at night. We keep turning the thermostat lower and lower." Those are classic signs that humidity may not be getting removed effectively.
And let's be clear, humidity is one of those things you don't always notice until it's gone. When your house is properly dehumidified, it just feels fresh. You sleep better, the floors don't feel sticky, your glasses don't fog up every time you walk outside. The house simply feels comfortable. When humidity is high, people often think they need colder air. They don't. They usually need drier air.
Now let's talk about an undersized air conditioner. If it's properly maintained and it's 35 degrees outside with high humidity, it's perfectly normal for it to run almost continuously. That's what it's designed to do. But if it's only 26 or 27 degrees outside and your thermostat is set to 22, yet the house keeps climbing to 24 or 25 degrees and never catches up, now we have something worth investigating.
Exactly. But even then, don't immediately assume it's undersized. Maybe the outdoor coil is plugged with cottonwood fluff. Maybe the indoor evaporator coil is dirty. Maybe the refrigerant charge isn't correct. Maybe the blower speed isn't set properly. Maybe the filter is completely blocked. We've seen systems that looked too small simply because they hadn't been serviced in years.
That's why we always tell homeowners not to diagnose equipment based on one symptom. Imagine your car suddenly feels sluggish. It could be bad fuel, low tire pressure, a clogged air filter, transmission problems, or maybe you accidentally left the parking brake on. The symptom is the same. The causes are very different. HVAC works exactly the same way.
Here's a story that sticks with me. A customer called us convinced their 15-year-old air conditioner was finished. It won't cool the house anymore. They had already started shopping for a replacement. When we arrived, we noticed the outdoor condenser looked like it had been growing its own sweater. It was absolutely packed with dirt, cottonwood, grass clippings, and leaves. You could barely see through the coil. We cleaned it properly, checked the refrigerant, tested everything else, and suddenly the system was cooling beautifully again. Instead of spending thousands of dollars, they spent a fraction of that on a proper service visit.
And I love those calls because nobody enjoys telling someone they need a major expense if they don't actually need one. Sometimes the best repair is simply maintenance. That's another reason annual service is so valuable. You're not just cleaning equipment, you're catching small issues before they become expensive ones.
Now let's talk about newer technology, because this changes the conversation a little. Years ago, almost every residential air conditioner was single stage. It had 2 speeds, on and off. That's it. Today's premium equipment is very different.
Exactly. Now we have two-stage systems. We have variable speed compressors. Some systems don't just turn on full blast. They might run at 40%, 55%, 70%, whatever the home actually needs. It's much more like cruise control than an on-off light switch.
And that's one of the reasons homeowners often tell us, this new system just feels different. The temperature doesn't swing as much. The humidity stays lower. It's quieter. The airflow is more consistent. Instead of blasting cold air into the house for a few minutes every hour, it's making small adjustments all day long.
Think of it this way. Imagine driving your truck. Would you rather drive by flooring the accelerator and slamming on the brakes every few hundred meters, or gently adjusting your speed to stay at exactly 100 kilometers an hour? Variable speed equipment works much more like that second example. It's smoother, more efficient, and usually much more comfortable.
Another thing we've noticed over the years is how often homeowners underestimate the impact of home improvements. You replace old windows, add attic insulation, seal air leaks, maybe install better doors. All of those things reduce the cooling load on the house. Sometimes people are surprised that after improving the home itself, the HVAC system suddenly seems to perform much better. That's because you've reduced the amount of heat entering the home.
And here's one final myth we should bust before we wrap up. People often say, "My neighbor has a 4-ton unit, so I probably need one too." Please don't size your HVAC equipment based on what your neighbor has. You don't know how their home was designed. You don't know if it's oversized. You don't know if it's undersized. You don't know if they have different insulation, different windows, different ductwork, or even different ceiling heights. The only house that matters is yours.
Exactly. If there's one takeaway from today's episode, it's this. Comfort isn't created by the biggest air conditioner. It's created by the right air conditioner. That's a huge difference. The goal isn't to cool your house as fast as possible. The goal is to keep your family consistently comfortable while controlling humidity, operating efficiently, and giving you years of reliable performance.
So if you're sitting at home wondering whether your air conditioner is oversized, undersized, or just not performing the way it should, don't guess. Have it evaluated properly. Sometimes the solution is a repair. Sometimes it's maintenance. Sometimes it's improving airflow. And yes, occasionally it is replacing equipment, but only after you know why there's a problem.
That's something we've always believed at Air Design Services. We'd rather solve the actual problem than simply sell a bigger air conditioner. Sometimes that means replacing equipment. Sometimes it doesn't. Our job is to give homeowners honest information so they can make the right decision for their family and their home.
We hope today's episode helped clear up one of the biggest myths in residential air conditioning. If you have friends or family who are replacing an air conditioner this summer, send them this episode before they sign a contract. It might save them from making a very expensive mistake.
And if you've been enjoying the podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you'd follow us on Spotify or subscribe on YouTube. It helps more homeowners find the show, and it lets us keep creating episodes that answer the questions we hear every single day in the field. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, whether it's furnaces, heat pumps, ductwork, water heaters, indoor air quality, or even some of the craziest service calls we've ever been on, let us know. There's a good chance we've lived it, and we'd love to talk about it.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. Stay cool, stay comfortable, and remember, the best air conditioner isn't the biggest one. It's the one that's perfectly matched to your home.
We'll see you next time on Air Design Answers. Take care, everyone.